Hi guys, welcome back to the Figma for Beginners series. In this video, we'll design a clean and modern login screen in Figma, step by step. This is part 1 of the series where we'll set up the layout, structure and basic elements. Now without any further ado, let's get started. Now let's start from our previous lesson where we had stopped, where we created these squares where we will be using now to design our login screen, which will help us in designing our login screen. So first thing you can do is come up to the pages panel and I will add a new page and I will name it login registration. Then you can create a frame by coming to the bottom toolbar here and clicking on the frame tool, and you can choose any preset you want. I will just choose iPhone 17 for now, and I will double click on this name and I will type in login. Now first thing we'll create is the iOS helpers. This step is not necessary, but it is a good practice to keep in line with this so our design looks clean and neat and professional. Then come to the bottom toolbar again and I will select a rectangle and I will click and drag on the canvas like so. And I will change the height of this rectangle from the properties toolbar on the right to 44. And I will just click and drag and stick it to the top. And then I will change the color of it so it is visible. If your app is red or green, so you can choose any other opposite color. For this I will just choose a bluish color. Then I will again select the rectangle tool at the bottom and I will click and drag on the canvas, and this rectangle I will keep the height to 60 and I will change the color to a more darker blue so you can see the difference. I will just pick up the blue that I selected before, and from the slider I'll click and drag at the bottom so you can see this one is a bit darker than the other. Then you can just click on this rectangle and hold down Alt on the keyboard and click and drag to make a copy of this, and I will change the height of this to 64 from the properties menu on the right side, and then I will click on the top rectangle and again I will hold down Alt on the keyboard and click and drag here at the bottom, and I will change the height of this one to 22, and then I'll click and drag both of these rectangles and move it to the bottom of the screen. Now let's rename the layers. Select the first rectangle which we created, and on the left side you will see we have selected it. Just double click on this and change the name of this rectangle to status bar. Then the second rectangle, rename it to nav bar. Then the third rectangle, then we'll click on this third rectangle and we'll rename it to tab bar, and the last one we'll click on it and we will rename it to safe area. Now that we have renamed the layers, now you can select all these 4 rectangles and group them. Just click on them by holding down shift and then click on Command G on the keyboard to group these, and you can rename the group to OS helpers, and you can collapse this menu to hide all of them, and you can also click on the lock icon to lock these layers. Then I will hide the layers by clicking on the eye icon. Now let's start building the app. Let's first go to the page where we have created our square. Then I'll just click and drag all of these, and I will go back to the login page now, and I will just paste it, and I'll just click and drag on the canvas on the left side. Let's grab our 32 by 32 square and click and drag here on the canvas and make a copy of it by holding on Alt on the keyboard and clicking and dragging. To make it go in a straight line, I'm holding on Shift as well on the keyboard, so it aligns itself perfectly on that straight line. Next thing we have to do is create a rectangle. Come to the bottom toolbar here and click and drag on the rectangle, and click and make a rectangle on the canvas like so, and I will change the height of this rectangle to 44. I will just position it in center. Then again you can just make a copy of this 32 by 32 square and place it from where we had picked it up. Now before we start designing ahead, let's choose a color for our app. I'll be designing an app for a restaurant, so I will use the color accordingly. So let's start by creating a square. I'll just hold down Shift and create a small square here, and then I'll come up to the fill menu on the right, click on it, and I will just go to the hex code here, value, and I will type in this code 00707E, which is this tealish color. So this will be our main app color. I will click and move this box outside the canvas. So this will be our main primary color of our app. Next thing you can do is, again, I will create a shape of a square, and this time I'll click and drag all the way on the canvas like so. Then I will choose the main primary color of our app, and I will send this square to the back so we can see other elements on top. To do that, just come up to the layers menu on the left and click and drag your new rectangle which you created all the way at the bottom, so it goes behind the other shapes. And another way you can do is by just right clicking on this object and clicking on send to back. You can also rename this layer by double clicking it, and I will name it background, and I will just make this lighter by coming up to the menu on the right under the fill. You can click and drag this slider to make the transparency less, so I'll make it around 20, and I will lock the layer by clicking on the lock icon, so you won't be able to move it around or mess it around. Next thing you can do is click on this rectangle and change the fill to white, and then we'll change the corner radius from 0 to 10, or I think 4 will be enough. And then you can also add a stroke. Give the same stroke of the main primary color from here. I'll just select that, and I will again come to the stroke, and I will decrease the opacity to around 50, so it will have a slight effect of this main primary color, but not too hard. It will be just a bit subtle. Next thing you can do is create a text tool. Come to the bottom toolbar here and click on the text tool, and I'll click on the canvas. I will just write here your email, and then from the font menu on the right side, I will go to the font options, and I will choose the font called Poppins, and I will change the size to around 15, and I will click and drag on then I'll click and drag on the top of this text box, and then I will change the color of this text to the main primary color of teal, and then I will click and drag this to the gray side, so it will have a tint of this primary color but with a darker shade of gray as well. The code of this is 51787D, and then click on this text box again and zoom in, and I will change the font weight of this from regular to medium, and then come up to your square shapes here, and I will copy the 8x8 square and I'll paste it here, and I'll zoom in and I'll click and drag this box just below your email, and I'll just click and drag this text box a bit up so the spacing is consistent. Also make sure when you create a text box, the stroke of this is set to inside. Right now it is already set to inside, so I will leave it as it is. Next thing you can do is just click on this orange box you created, and hit delete on the keyboard to delete it. I will zoom out, and then I will click on this your email text field, and while holding down shift I will select the text box. And now depending on your system, if you're using Windows or Mac, click Command G to group it if you're using Mac, and Control G if you're using Windows. Here it will group this text your email field and as well as this white text box. Here it's under group 1. I will just double click on it and I will name it field. Now you can do is click on this group we just created it, hold down Alt on the keyboard. While holding down Alt, I'll click and drag this at the bottom to make a duplicate of this field, and I will then double click on this your email, and I will change the text field to password, and the spacing between this password field and the your email, we will keep it to this 24 by 24. I will click and drag this box over here, and I will click on this field and I will move it up so it aligns to that password P, so we'll have consistent spacing. Now you can click and drag this box where it was. You can also now delete these other squares which you had created. Now you can see how our project is coming alive with a proper system and a hierarchy with proper spacing, which looks more professional. Now let's create a forgot password option over here. Click on the text tool at the bottom here and then click on the canvas and type forgot password, and I will change the color of this to this main primary teal color. Click on this fill option on the right, and you can use your eyedropper tool and click on this so it will pick up that same color. Then click on this forgot password text field and click and drag over here, and you can also put the alignment of this to align it to right, and click and drag over here. Next we have to align it properly with a proper spacing of how much space we need below the text box. So create a rectangle again, click and drag, and make sure the height of this rectangle is 44, and move this rectangle behind the forgot password field. Then click on this forgot password field and make it middle alignment to this text box and zoom in. Now I will click on this rectangle which I created, and I will just darken the text box colors so I'll be able to see the spacing properly. After you did this, then again come to the bottom toolbar and make a perfect square. And if you can just see, the same square is matching the up and down, and the forgot password is in center, then you're good to go. You can delete these two squares, then click on this rectangle and this forgot password, and again group these by clicking on Command G, and I will just name it to forgot password, and I will double click on this rectangle we created. Then I'll come to the fill menu on the right, and the opacity I will decrease it to 0. Now next thing I'll do is I will just lighten the background color a bit more. I'll click on this login frame. Inside it, at the bottom, we had kept our background layer. I'll click on this, and then I'll come up to the fill, and I will go to this color picker over here, and instead of the hex value, I will go to HSL. I will type the saturation to 80 and the lightness to around 90, so it will be a bit off-white. And then I will click on the lock layer icon to lock this background layer. After we have changed the background color, next thing we can do is now just noticed we have to also rename our fields. Right now both names are field and field, so we can click on this first field, which is your email, and here under the layers I will change it to field email, and the second one I will just name it to field password. Also you can change the name of your file. I'll just name it practice. Now next we'll create a button for app. Now I will come down to the toolbar at the bottom. I will select my rectangle tool, and I will click and drag over here, and the height of this button I will set it to 56, and the corner radius to 4, same as we had kept for our fields. And the color of the button I will choose our primary color. I will just navigate to the color here. I'll choose the color by coming up to the fill menu. I will click on the eyedropper tool, and I will pick this color. Next thing we'll do is we'll add some text on the button. Click on the text tool, and you can just type. I'll type here login, and I will move it to the center over here. Figma will help you guide with the snaps so it aligns in center. The size of this font I will keep it to 17, and the weight of it to bold, and I'll just align it to the center. Then I will click on the login text. While holding down shift, I will click on the rectangle behind it, and I will group it by clicking on Command G, and then I will name this group to the button login. Now you can also add a box to just see if the top spacing and the bottom spacing is same on the text. Grab the rectangle tool, and while holding down shift, I will click and drag, and I'll click and drag again to see the both spacing is matching. Then we'll just delete these two squares, and then I will grab my 16 by 16 square, and I will just place it over here, and while holding down Alt I will duplicate it, and I will take it on the other side of the button, and then I'll click the text, just double click it so it will go inside this group, and then I need to click and drag the text field border all the way to the right, and then from the left side I will also drag all the way to the left. You can see now the text is moving towards the left. We can fix this by coming up to the alignment tools here and clicking on center. I will show you now why we did this. So I will just pick the square and I'll place it where we had picked it from, and the second one I will delete. So the reason we enlarge the text area is because the text will fit even if we have a longer text. If we have longer text, it will still fit. So this is the reason we had increased the border of the text to the edges. I will just hit Command Z on the keyboard to undo it, and this will be our login button. Instead of button login, I'll just name it login button. After we have done this, now we'll need to figure out how much spacing we have to keep between the forgot password and the login button. So for that I will grab my 48 by 48 square, and I will just place it below the square of the forgot password. Inside the forgot password, click on the rectangle behind it, which is the transparency. We have kept it to 0. Just bring it back up the transparency a bit so you can see, and I will just attach the orange box to that bottom, and then I will click on my login button and I will click and drag. So that's the spacing we'll keep between the forgot password area and the login button. I'll put this box where it was, and again I will click on this rectangle under the group, and I will reduce the transparency all the way to 0. So in our next video we'll continue designing this ahead. I hope you have learned something from this video. In the coming lesson we'll complete this app design, so that's why I had made it in few parts, so it won't be more stressful for you to make it all in one go. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Figma tutorials. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.